Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how to query data in your DynamoDB table using Amazon Athena. I'm also going to show you how to query more complex types that you may have in your DynamoDB table, such as hash maps or string sets or lists. So before we get into the AWS console, I wanted to just show you what we're going to be doing so that you can follow along. So we're going to start with our DynamoDB table here that already has some sample data in it. Now we're going to use the export table feature of DynamoDB to export all the data from that table into an S3 bucket. Now the format of the data that comes out into S3 is in DynamoDB JSON. So it's a little bit ugly looking, but I'll show you what that looks like in our S3 bucket. And it's going to require a little bit of parsing when we get into SQL, but I'll show you how to do that as well. Once we have that data into S3, we're going to use the Amazon Glue service or AWS Glue service to crawl or discover our data. We're going to point it to the same bucket that we exported the data into in the first step, and that's going to automatically load that data into a database for us in Athena. And then that brings us to our third step where we're going to go into the Athena console and we're going to do some queries, and I'll share the queries with you, also show you how to write them. And that's where I'll show you how to parse the maps, lists, strings, numbers, all that kind of stuff in the editor. So that's what we're going to do in this video. Let's head over into the console now and get started. All right, so here we are in the S3 section of the AWS console. Now I just wanted to show you two things that you're going to need in order to do this tutorial. You're going to need two S3 buckets. The first one is going to be for your DynamoDB table export. Mine is going to be called beabetterdev-ddb-export. That's where all of our data is going to be loaded into. So I'll show you what that looks like when we export our table into here. And then the second bucket that you're going to need when you get to the Athena step is just to store your Athena results. When you're using Athena and you perform SQL queries on it, you can see the results directly in the editor if you're using that approach, but it will also store the results in an S3 bucket. And when you initially set it up, you need to provide it an S3 bucket to store that data. So that's where we're going to use this bucket here a little bit later on. So make sure you have two buckets if you're following this step by step. Okay, so let's head over into DynamoDB now to show you a little bit about my table and the format of it. You'll see that it isn't consistent. It's got some complex types in there. It's the orders table. So let's explore table items. Let's close this out, make some more real estate. Let's close this out too. All right, so we're just going to do a quick scan of our table and you can see what's going on here. So this is an orders table. And so we have order ID, we have cancellation metadata, and canceled reasons. This is only filled in when the state of the order is canceled. As you can see here, the bottom one is in canceled, which is why we have this map in this case, which is canceled date, and then inside of it is, this date. This is a map type in DynamoDB, so we'll be able to query by cancel date a little bit later. And then in canceled reasons, we have a string list, which is item damaged in this case. It's just one entry inside the list. I got stuck for quite a few hours when I was trying to query this data in Athena. So I wanted to do queries like select star where canceled reasons are item damaged. And it's really complicated and took a while to figure out. So I'm happy to share that with you today. And some other metadata that we have here as well. So we have the customer ID, we have the order date, we have the state, which we already saw, it's shipped, delivered, or canceled. And then we also have the total amount, which is just a numeric number value. All right, so in order to export our data into S3, it's a pretty straightforward process. So just go into the table. So actually, let's just back up. So we're in DynamoDB. We're going to go to tables. We're going to go to my orders table. Then we're going to go to this section here, exports and streams. And I'm going to click on this. And you can see here I already have a record where I exported previously. Now, depending on the size of your table, this can take a pretty substantial amount of time. In my case, this is like a tiny table, but it took like 5 minutes or so. So be prepared to wait a little bit when you're doing this. So to actually export, I'm going to do this from scratch actually. I'm not going to use the one I did previously. But we're going to go to export to S3. And then you need to give it your destination S3 bucket. So this is going to be the DynamoDB bucket that I just showed you, the export bucket in the previous step. You can go to Browse S3 and just type in like a filter here. So this one, beabetterdev-ddb export. We're going to click on Choose, and it's in this account, this S3 bucket. No additional settings here. By the way, if it's your first time doing this as well, it may give you a brief, like a warning that says, in order to export or use the export feature, you need to turn on point in time recovery, or PITR. That is a prerequisite. It doesn't cost anything. You just need to enable that, and it's just a button click that you need to perform. If you want to export from a certain time, you can do that as well. Interesting fact, they use a write-ahead log behind the scenes so that you can kind of rebuild the history of DynamoDB at any time. You can learn about that, but that's how they achieve kind of taking snapshots at certain points in time. We're going to use the DynamoDB JSON format. If you use Ion, the queries that I show you in Athena probably aren't going to work, so just be aware of that. No encryption is fine. So we're going to leave all that as default. We're going to click on export now, and you can see we are currently exporting. And if you refresh this, this is going to take like 5 minutes for my tiny table. I'm just going to fast forward the video now and show you when this is completed. So I'll see you in a moment. All right, everyone. So I timed it this time and it took approximately 7 minutes, but you can see now that it is finally showing as completed. So before we get into the Glue console to set up the crawler to kind of parse this table or parse this data, I wanted to show you what the raw data looks like really quick. So we're going to click on the destination S3 bucket here, and we're going to go into this. So we're going to go into DynamoDB here, and then we're going to go into one of the subfolders. Then you can see here, there's a bunch of metadata files here. These 4, you don't really need to worry about that at all. Inside the data folder is where our raw data is going to be. So if you click on that, you can see there's 4 different files here, varying sizes. That's fine. Now note that this is in a JSON and zipped file. So if you want to see what this looks like, you're going to have to extract it using, if you're on Windows, I use 7-zip, which is pretty easy, or like WinRAR or something like that. But if you want to take a look at it, you can click on this. You can go to download. This downloads, as you can see here, just like a zip file. And then I'm on my other screen here, just unzipping this really quick using 7-zip. Just right-clicking it, going to 7-zip, extract, and here is what the data looks like. Let me make this bigger so you can see too. So you see it's a JSON object. It's got item in there, and here's some of the metadata. So it's got the order ID, it's a string, 3, total amount, number 75. If we scroll to the right here, looking at some of the more complex, well, this one isn't the record for the map and list object, the canceled object, but you kind of get the idea, right? It's in this like ugly, nasty format that you don't necessarily want to have to deal with when you're doing your SQL queries. I'm going to show you how to transform this to make this much more intuitive and easy and much more like a classic SQL query. Anyways, just wanted to show you that data and what it looks like. So now that you have an idea of kind of what we're dealing with, let's head over into the Glue section of the console, where we're going to set up a database really quick and then set up our crawler and then crawl that data that we just looked at. All right, so this is the default Glue console. We're going to go to the left here. I'm going to create a brand new database. Now you will have this default database if this is your first time using Glue, and you can definitely skip this step if you want, but I already did some pre-configuration on the default database and I don't know how to undo it. So what I want to do is just kind of start from scratch, because that's probably going to be the state that you're starting from, and I'm just going to create a brand new database. So we're going to go to add database here. Let's just call this new database. That's fine. And create database here, and then we just have a new one here. So in your case, you may just want to use default, but I'm going to be using new database here. All right, so now what we want to do is we want to go to the left-hand side here where it says crawlers. And crawlers are basically as the name would kind of suggest, a means for you to discover data sets and kind of ingest them into certain tables and even create tables so that you can query them from elsewhere within Glue and within Athena as well. So we're going to go into crawlers, and you can see I have an old DynamoDB crawler that I already set up, but I'm going to start or create a new one from scratch. Actually, I'm going to delete this just so we don't get confused. So we're going to delete this crawler. Yeah, that's going away, and refresh. Okay, that's gone. So let's start from scratch. We're going to go to create crawler here and enter a crawler name. So what is this? The orders table crawler. And okay, so we're going to go to next. And is your data already mapped to glue tables? No, it is not. So we're going to click on add data source here. And you can see it already has pre-selected S3, network connection. We don't need to do anything. Location of this data, it is in this account. If it's in a different account, you're going to need the associated permissions for Glue to be able to look at it, which is kind of beyond the scope of this video. But anyways, we're going to give it the S3 object now, or S3 bucket rather. And let's just go to, what was it called? Like DDB, this one. Choose, and then it's complaining here. All you have to do is add a / and then it'll stop complaining. You can also give it a path to the like the data subfolder as well, but I'm just going to leave it as default just so you can see what the behavior is like. All right, so make sure you have this selected as well, crawl all subfolders, so that it will look inside every folder here. And that's all you really need to do here. So we're going to go to add a S3 data source. That's fine. You can see it now shows up now under data sources. And we're going to go to next. And existing IAM role, if you already have one, you can select from it here. I'm going to go to create a new IAM role, and we're just going to call this like orders table. You can call this whatever you want, really doesn't matter. Go to create, and this should be all right now, right? It's giving us this red warning here. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Lake formation, not going to do any of that. Security configuration, not going to do any of that. We're going to go to next. Okay, now output and scheduling. So for you, you're probably going to want to just select the default here. But for me, since I wanted to show you from scratch, I'm going to use new database. Totally doesn't matter. Not going to change anything else for the rest of the video. Just something for you to be aware of. So I'm going to click on new database here. Table name prefix doesn't matter. This doesn't matter either. One thing that does matter that I wanted to point out is if you click on advanced options and you scroll down, one problem that I had is related to this setting. So with this setting, if you enable it, well, let me tell you the problem. The problem was that when I updated the schema in my DynamoDB table, like I added a new field, for example, it wasn't reflecting correctly when I reran the crawler. It was running into an error and I wasn't able to select my data. So with this approach, when you select this makes it kind of refresh the schema. At least that's kind of what I discovered. So you may want to reselect this if you're going to be kind of persisting your database and your table over time and going to be adding fields and exporting to it regularly. Make sure you select this setting, which I will do so in this case as well. All right, then you can play with this setting as well if you want. How should Glue handle deleted objects in the data store? You can either delete the tables and partitions, you can ignore the change, or you can mark the table as deprecated if you'd like as well. But I'm just going to leave it as default here. Crawler schedule. All right, if you want to do this just a one-time thing, like I'm going to do here, you're going to leave it as on demand. You can also set this up where it runs on a schedule, so you can consistently keep your data up to date. Keep in mind, though, that you're going to need to consistently export your data from DynamoDB. So in this case, on demand only really makes sense for what we're doing here. So let's go ahead and click on next now. And this is just a review step. This looks good, nothing out of the ordinary. And we're going to go to create crawler. All right, so if you scroll down now, you can see, if you refresh this actually, and funny, okay, actually we're already in the crawler, but let's just back up so you can see what it looks like. All right, refresh that. Now you can see we have this brand new crawler. There's no runs, it's not on a schedule, so like everything is brand new. We're going to click on it now, so go into it, and we're going to click on run crawler. So now the crawler is now running, and if you scroll down here and you can see the state of it, it's taking 10 seconds, whatever, it's incrementing. So we're just going to wait. This may take like a minute or so, and of course it will depend on the amount of data that you have in your bucket or the amount of data you have in your DynamoDB table. So I'm just going to fast forward this really quick and I'll see you in a moment. All right, so this took less than 1 minute and now it is in completed state. So that's looking good. Just as a quick little sanity test, what we can do is head over into the table section of your database. And if you refresh this now, you can see that we have new tables here. Actually, this is the one that we are interested in. I probably should have added the subfolder to point to just the data directory. You can see it's picking up like all the manifest files as well, which I don't want to query on this, definitely not. But the one that we're going to be using is the data table. All right, so we are good in Glue now. We don't need to do anything else. What we can do is head over into Athena to start interacting with this. So I'm gonna go type in Athena, go into the Athena section in the console, and we're gonna change the database here. Yours will be default, but I'm gonna select new database here. Now you may get a warning, like a blue ribbon here at the top, that's going to say, like, since it's your first time using Athena, you must set like an output path. You're going to want to click on that and just select the second bucket that you had related to the Athena results. Mine was like DynamoDB or Be Better Dev Athena results or something like that, because that's where the results are going to be stored, and you're not going to be able to do anything here unless you do that. Like, you're not going to be able to query your table or anything. So that is a prerequisite. So just be aware. All right, so this is nonsense. I'm just going to create a new query here. And you can see we have our table over here. And if we expand clicking this little plus icon, you can see that we only have one column, and it's this item column. And it's this nightmare-inducing structure. So it's like struct order ID, which is a struct of S, which is a string. That's one, I guess, field. And there's total amount, which is a struct of numbers. Like, I don't even know. So let me show you what happens when you just try to do a normal select from this table. So let's say select star from data. And you're going to see it is not very nice looking. So it does have all of our data in there. It has all the 5 records, but it's like, what is this, right? So it's this JSON object. It's got order ID, string, to, blah, 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 blah. This looks terrible. Like, how are you possibly going to query this? This one even looks worse because it's got all the map information. So cancel date, cancel reasons, all that. So in order to get this into, a nice clean format where like order ID is a column, totals amount of column, state's a column, we're going to do some selection magic. So I'm just going to copy this in here and explain this to you, or paste this in rather. So what are we doing here? We're basically using this subselector field method to extract out the different fields from our object. So we're saying select item dot order ID. Order ID is the field, then S is the type as order ID. So if you look at this, right, order ID, ignore it's not capitalized here, so it's like not capital O or not capital I. But you can see order ID dot S, that would be number 2 in this case. And we're doing that for basically all of them. So what you need to do is take a look at your structure over here on the left-hand side, see what type it is. So order ID is a S. So we're doing item.orderID.s, and then we're just putting in whatever you want the column to look like. And if you look at some of the other types, so like total amount, which is a struct of n, so we're going to do item.totalamount.n, and that's going to be total amount. Similarly, if you look here, we have canceled reasons, which is a list. And if you look here, canceled reasons is a struct, which is a list, and it's an array of strings. So if you do this now, you're going to get the nice column approach that, you're probably thinking that you would get in the first place here. And just sort this really quick. So this is much more workable and much more similar to what you would expect if you're just kind of used to querying stuff in SQL. All right, so now you can see though that, I'm going to get back to this actually. Let's pause this. This still looks ugly, which is an issue for us, but we're going to fix that in a moment. So what we can do now is we can start doing some normal SQL things. So where item.customerID.s is equal to CID-100. By the way, Athena is like very finicky. You can't use quotes here. You must use like single, I forget what these are called, like delimiters, and like the case, it's very case sensitive and complains a lot. And even if you have like an extra space here or no space, it'll complain as well. So make sure that you kind of follow this format. By the way, I'll make all the queries that I'm showing you here available in a gist in the bottom of this video in the description. So you can, you don't have to copy all this stuff out. So now if we do run here, you can see, we got 3 customers that have CID-100. So that's looking good. Then you can do, of course, like your AND. So like AND, item.orderID.s is equal to 5. So let's run that. And there you go. So we got the order ID 5 and it's customer 100. So that is looking good. All right. So now how do we deal with this? Like, what do we want to do first? Like I want to, let's deal with the map first. So, you can have potentially many fields in your map, like cancel date is just one, but maybe you have like 3, 4, and 5. And you also have like string in here as well. But, you can't do, you may expect like something that I tried, which is, take this and then do like where item dot cancellation metadata dot, I don't even know, .s is equal to like this. This is not going to work. It's going to complain and it's not going to recognize it. So to deal with the map, what we got to do is, let's just pasting this in here. So we're going to do a select, and it's item dot cancellation metadata. So nothing changed there. The map type. And then this is where I spent hours trying to figure out what was wrong. It was kind of like really silly. So in the data that I exported in my DynamoDB table, it was capital C and capital D, right? Canceled date. So it was camel case. But for whatever reason, when you export it or when it gets into Glue or whatever, you can see here, it takes away or lowercases everything. And so what I was doing for a while trying to figure this out was, I had capital C here and capital D, and it wasn't working. And, I thought it was something wrong with, not necessarily my query, but just my approach. And it took me like hours to figure out what was wrong. Very, very frustrating. So make sure that you use the lowercase name of your field that you want to query on. And also make sure that the S is, or whatever type it is. So mine is a string, string S. So make sure if it's a number or another type that you put that there. And then we're just saying as cancellation metadata. And you can just do like a basic, let's finish this up actually, from data. And you can see now this should return our results, hopefully. Yep. And then you can see cancellation metadata. Now everything else is blank because, all the other ones weren't in a canceled state. So that makes sense. So to trim this out a little bit, let's add a where clause. So let's say, So from metadata, where, and we're going to say item.cancellation metadata. So metadata.m.cancel date. Again, note the lowercase here. You have to use it throughout. .s is equal to, what was it, like this thing. So let's just take that and put that in there. And wow, that's not nice. Okay. And close that out. All right, and run that. Now we only get that one record back, so perfect. By the way, this is a string type still, so it's not a date type. Like you can cast this if you want while you're querying it, but I'm not a SQL guru, so I don't know how to do that offhand, but I'm sure you can look up a way to cast this into the corresponding type. So you can do like before or after this date or whatever. Anyways, all right, so now what I want to do is show you how to do the list. So let's unwind this a little bit and just look at our original data again. So Control Z, all right, so we got, okay, that's not what I want. You know what, let's just do this. That should work. So what do we have here, right? So we had under the canceled reasons, we have a list, an array of these ugly things. So it's a string and it's item damaged. So what I want to do is to be able to query on canceled reasons to say, give me all the records that have, a canceled reason of item damaged. And similarly to the map situation, this didn't really work out of the box and you can't query on like this whole thing because it's an array type and you need to like unnest everything basically. So let me show you how to deal with this so that you can get it into its own column here and then just have like a list of items without this like nonsense of like the strings and all that, and be able to query on these things as well. All right, so what we're going to do is, so we're going to write a new query here. So we're going to say select, and we need to use the transform feature of SQL to transform this column. And so I'm going to say transform and item.canceledReasons.L because it's a list. And then we're going to map the item. We want to pull out the, actually spaces may be useful here. We want to pull out the string field. So I.s. I is just an arbitrary thing, by the way. Like this can be ABC123, it could be whatever you want. But we want to pull out the string type here. If this is a number, like a list of numbers or a list of other objects, you're going to have to change this. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say as whatever you want your column name to be. So mine is canceled reasons in this case, reasons. And then we need to do a little bit more for the where clause. And actually, maybe let's try to run this really quick before we do that. So from data, maybe this will work. I hope. Yeah. Okay, so it gives it back, right? Actually, a good thing I did this because now you can see it's pulling out the data correctly. You can see that there's no other canceled reasons for all these other order IDs, but this is so far so good. So now it is storing it correctly, or kind of the view is working correctly. So we're able to do the query now on like item damaged, for example. So let's do that now. So we want to select just the one that has item damaged. So we're going to say where. And I think we need like let's just put some brackets here. So we're going to say contain. So you can use the contains, just classic select from within a list. And still you got to transform the thing again. So we're going to say transform and item.canceled reasons.l, comma, I dash arrow, I.s. And then you just put in whatever you're looking for. So we're looking for item underscore damage. Let's make a mistake really quick just to show you that it won't work if you're looking for something that, you know, has no matches. So let's run that. And all right, so I made a little syntax error there. I'm not sure exactly what I did wrong. I just copied it out of my notes. But yeah, I probably missed a comma or a closed bracket or something like that. But anyways, let's do that again. So item underscore damage, nothing else changed here. It's still exactly the same. So canceled reasons, whatever, all that's all exactly what we had before. You can see item damage with a capital D. So this should return no data. If it works correctly. There you go. So no data coming back. And let's do with item damage now. So let's run that again. And there you go. So we get the item back. So using this method, it's very, very powerful. You can query over like tons and tons of data using Athena, like, you know, potentially gigabytes or hundreds of gigabytes or even up to terabytes I've heard of in some cases. But this shows you how to get data out of DynamoDB into S3 and into Athena where you can query on it. Hopefully you enjoyed. Let me know what you think of the video in the comments below. And thanks so much for watching. And don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.